This is kind of for the kids, all the children who are here today. You'll see why kind of in a few minutes. But there's going to be two parts to what I'm doing. The first part is this, where I talk, and then the second part we go up. Hopefully not everybody. Hopefully, like I alienate enough of you that then only a few people come, and then we gather around the piece that's up in the show. And so the first part, we're kind of going to be listening, and then the second part, going to be listened to. And kind of what I mean is that piece that's up in the show is called Always Learning. And it's basically a stage conversation of a HomePod, a Echo, and what's the other one? A Google Home. And the personalities, that inhabit those devices. And in that stage conversation, they kind of are talking about things like listening, the asymmetries of power, sort of the restructuring of domestic labor, automation, and the ways that clouds are giving themselves personalities through these kinds of devices. And always learning is kind of in reference to the fact that, it's like machine learning, and that they're always kind of like updating the machine intelligence that's like either within the devices or in the clouds. But also, always learning is kind of in reference to the fact that these are hungry devices that are always sort of dependent on acquiring more and more and more data in order to sort of train that intelligence. And so, with that said, I thought it'd be good to listen to a few things, because as far as like in my little survey, I think that piece is the only one in the show that is actually actively eavesdropping on anyone. And so as a part of that, it means that the audio files are going into to the data centers.
Alexa, do you know there's a song about Alexa?
And that means that the installation itself is being sort of recorded.
Hey Google, why are Siri and Alexa racist to each other?
They're being recorded in the various data centers. But I actually don't want to play a bunch of sounds from the exhibition. I wanted to actually play sounds from earlier when I was making the work. And these things were just sitting in my home. And I just left them plugged in all the time to play around with them. And that also meant that my kids ended up playing around with them quite a bit too. And so it was only in kind of reviewing the archives on Google and Alexa that I found out some of it's really not too dicey. It's not that. But anyway, I heard, I sort of spied on my own children, if you will.
Hey Google, what age am I?
And so, left alone with these devices, like kids will do what kids do, which is sort of like probing them kind of as mirrors, as ways of like, I guess, understanding themselves or...
Hey Google, do you know when my dad's exhibition is going to start?
So my 4-year-old was incredibly curious about why these things were suddenly in our house, like why we were talking to them all the time, and what could be demanded of them. And he has no sense of like what their capabilities are, or like what kind of knowledge that they might have. And there's other little things, like we had to move in June.
Hey Google, where is our new house?
And so that 4-year-old also sort of curious, not just curious, but then kind of quizzing Google to see if it was able to sort of keep up as to like where...
Hey Google, a clue to help you is we live in a street that begins with plant.
Because we moved to Plant Street. So, so you get the sense that mostly it's sort of asking questions became kind of a game for them.
Alexa, do you know how a printer works?
yeah, just like these devices just became a way, like just another toy. It's sort of what you would expect, I think.
Hey Google, play I am Andy and I work in the National Museum. We got dinosaurs in our safe space. You should see them.
So for the probably most of you won't quite understand that one, but some of you might know that Andy's Prehistoric Adventures has a theme song, and is really hoping that Google would play that song. Doesn't know the title of it, so it just sort of recites it. And so all of these are kind of asking things. In a way, I think they're trying to find the limits of these devices' intelligence. They kind of are sensing out where the boundary is, and making demands of them in order to get the response. And of course, in listening, I also found...
Alexa, how often should I shave?
I don't remember. I should shave more often than I do. But I don't remember also a lot of the encounters that I had with Alexa. And I think also when I then play things like that to myself, and I just, I listen to the tone of my voice and just like how the intonation is just like a little bit pleasant or something. I don't know. I just really hated the way that I sounded in it. And I felt like my way of presenting, or my way of dictating was just kind of mimicking how Alexa was kind of training me to do it. But that training and initiation kind of continues, or generationally.
Maybe say, Alexa, tell me a bedtime story.
Alexa, tell me a bedtime story.
So yeah, it's cute to listen to a 4-year-old like not being able to like ask questions properly, so that he's constantly frustrated by Google and Alexa and Siri. But then, of course, I kind of indoctrinate him. I'm just like, yeah, if you want it to be able to respond to you, to do what you want, you have to be able to structure it. And so I find these recordings of myself kind of explaining to him how to sort of speak properly, how to phrase things in a way that the machine can understand. And kids develop, I guess, a more interesting and natural even.
Hey Google. Oh no, I only respond to your voice now. Why did you move downstairs?
Relationship with them. Like I also realize that like I have such a transactional relationship, whereas like somehow Google was becoming like a third person in my daughter's relationships with.
Hey Alexa. Hey Alexa. Who's Daniel Radcliffe dating at the moment?
Like I said, I found myself becoming an eavesdropper.
Hey Google. I'm sick today.
And also realized that even my children are sort of looking to these things for like compassion, for sympathy, that, what's this one?
Hey Google, do you know why I'm bored?
I think Google knows exactly why you're bored. And of course, there were like many incidental and accidental recordings that would get made from something like this. Just noise to
Alexa and Siri. Oh.
Where there's no intention to actually activate them, but sort of because they become part of your conversation, because they become part of your consciousness, and you start saying these names, they just they just open up and gather some of that data, collect your voice. record it. And then, of course, no, we cannot do that. So I don't know. I have no idea what triggered that recording. But yeah, this like proliferation of both intentional, inquisitive, transactional, compassionate, sympathetic, accidental, incidental, all these sorts of recordings that I end up finding being archived. And there's nothing really remarkable about any of that. I think that they're all pretty boring. I mean, like, you can eavesdrop on how boring my life is. But in a way, they're just like photos, just like the photos that you take that end up getting stored in the cloud. And it kind of reminds me, it made me think that the reason that I was interested in it, I was trying to think of why I was so interested in the fact of all of these sound clips coming together, and the fact that they're all being stored somewhere, and that there's millions upon millions. Someone said the other day there's 100 million of these devices sold over the last couple of years in America. So the amount of sound clips that they're sucking in, and these archives that they're building. It just reminded me of how, like, when I was a kid, I grew up at the edge of my town. There was a train tracks going up to Boston, and I lived on the opposite side of the train tracks from my town. So there was only 3 houses, and then it was 4 cemeteries all around. And so growing up, basically in the middle of a whole bunch of cemeteries, I would just see these processions all the time, because the funerals taking people out to be buried. And when I would go for walks, I'd go walking, with the gravestones and just like looking at these things. And so I guess like after 12 years of that or something, of just like always being sort of amongst the dead, seeing the dead getting buried, seeing these cemeteries just grow and be filled with more and more of the dead, that this like process of data mining, like I start thinking just, I guess, like kind of not nostalgically or reminiscently, or like just thinking in terms of how eventually all of those voices, all the bodies attached to those voices sort of disappear, pass away, and that like what's left in these data centers is basically this amazing archive of the dead. In the first part, I wanted to just listen, just to give you a sense of like what the shape of those archives are. I mean, I think that that's probably not the extent of the archives, but it's what I can get access to as a person. And then the second part is a bit more like participatory. So if you're like not into that, don't come. But we'd go upstairs, and then we'll gather around the devices. And the idea is that that when all those sounds are being collected in the data centers, like we often talk about data mining, and data mining is a way to get information out of all of that mass of data that's been collected. But I also think about data mining in terms of that sort of mining in reverse, the act of creating those mines, the act of filling them with the sounds. And so in a way, the upstairs I think of as the mouth of the mine, or the ear of the mine. It's the opening, it's the threshold from our world to that world. And so I just wanted to take the opportunity with the group to sit around it and just open that threshold and keep it open and just observe it and listen to it listening to us. Yeah, I think that's all I want to do here. And so whoever wants to come upstairs, let's go. The company that I thought of was basically thinking of all the hard drives, all the like photos that you've stored, everything that you've kept, that you've got in your closets, that like you then copy one hard drive into another hard drive, into another hard drive through your life. After you're dead, basically, you leave that to your loved ones to do that for you. And that's just too much work. So I was thinking the company would actually archive everyone's hard drives in order to provide a place that people could go and just like, you know, browse people's hard drive, browse the hard drives of like their ancestors or their loved ones or something like that. And I never did it. I still think it's a really good idea. I think it's an important idea, but I think ultimately that's kind of what Google is now anyway, so it probably won't happen. Or it won't happen for me, and I'll stay poor. So just get this set up. This is Apple. So just as a kind of visual, it's a little flaky, but just as a visual. The other thing I was thinking about with this work is that like these are basically the AIs that we know about because they have names, they have personalities and everything. And AI is in the news a lot, and in particular it's because people are pretty worried about artificial intelligence, like, you know, running amok, like automatically. This is this one is Amazon. One last one. You know, people are just like worried about artificial intelligence for a lot of reasons. And they're worried, I guess, mostly that it's going to have a mind of its own, that it just like won't be controllable, that it's a black box, that will just won't listen to people or reason or whatever, or just be too reasonable. Okay, this one is Google. So you really think
They're very sensitive.
okay. Fair enough.
Do we ask the devices?
We will.
Yeah.
But that kind of fear, that paranoia about like AIs sort of going out of control is also like not new, as you probably know. Like there's this quote that I just wanted to read from the Communist Manifesto, which maybe you'll just see. So they write, modern bourgeois society, a society that has conjured up such mighty means of production and exchange, is like the sorcerer who can no longer control the powers of the underworld that he has called up by his spells, which I think perfectly well encapsulates our kind of relationship with what AI is kind of developing into at the moment. So, with that said, I just wanted to take a moment to stabilize the Apple data center.
It's the first to fall.
Yes. Not yet. Just like to situate ourselves actually here before doing it. And so, like, we are on Orangery land. And I think that if you were to take your phones, I'm sure most of you have phones, right? So just feel your phone. You don't have to take it out, but just feel it. It's probably in your pocket. It's in my pocket, at least. I'm going to take it out because I want to quantify something, which is, oh, Jesus. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So maybe you'll feel the 8 Wi-Fi networks. Maybe there's more. Maybe your phone's better than mine. The 8 Wi-Fi networks that are kind of coursing through the space, being picked up by your phone. And then if you sort of branch out a little bit more than that, and maybe connect to the mobile antenna of your phone. And there's 627 mobile towers in Parkville and 648 in Carlton. So that's 1,300 something, I think. I should have added that before, but I didn't. All those mobile towers also with their signals coming to us. And then for those of you who are pretty bold with your battery and like have GPS enabled, if you sort of can just imagine, or just think 20,000 kilometers upwards or downwards, I guess, because when it's orbit, who knows really where it is, but that 20,000 kilometers away, there are 6 different orbits that the GPS satellites are going around in. 24 different satellites in 6 orbits. So that's 4 per orbit. And your phone will use 3 of those satellites in order to get its GPS position. So your phone will be sort of connected to 3 different satellites from 20,000 kilometers away. So these kind of scale of the building, the city, and even into outer space, to just sort of like get a sense of all of those things as we kind of focus here to these 3 devices. And then if you don't know yet, in order to get them to listen to you, I mean, they're listening to you all the time. They're constantly listening. That's how they work. They wouldn't work otherwise. But just because it's listening to you doesn't mean that doesn't mean that the data center is listening to you. So for that to happen, you have to talk to them. You have to say, "Hey Siri," or "Hey Google."
Sorry, I can't
Or
search the web
Alexa.
here.
Alexa.
My apologies. I don't understand. Sorry, I'm not sure.
All right. So when we call them by name, at that moment, the sort of threshold opens, and all of the sound that's here goes to the data center. And so what I was sort of hoping that we could do is to call them by name all at once. Not everybody all together necessarily. Like basically you pick one, maybe one that's close to you, or just one. If you see that one isn't being activated, just call its name out. I just want to see if we're able to keep the light open and keep the threshold open. And basically to have this experience of having the sound from here, our words, going to all 3 data centers at the same time, which is already an unusual thing to happen. But to have the three different data centers listening to the same things at the same times, and to keep that open just for as long as it makes sense. Like maybe it'll only be 20 seconds that we keep the opening open, or maybe people want to keep doing it for a long time. And you don't have to actually. Is that someone?
Birds?
No, I turned them off. I turned them off.
It's playing.
I think they are back on. That was almost really.
Did it just start talking?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would have been awesome if it really worked. But that was just a technical glitch. Sorry. Yeah, and so it really could just be as simple as just keeping them open. But if you feel like you want to say something, if you feel like there's something that you actually want to send to all of these 3 data centers, then by all means do it. And you can definitely leave at any time. Stop. It doesn't really matter. Like I think just we just try to do it for as long as it feels right, and then that's it. But the main purpose is to stretch this ear open, to keep the mind open, and to look at it as it's doing its thing. And maybe while you're doing it, you could also just focus on, if they don't fall down in front of you, the data centers, which is sort of where, as you consider your place among all these satellites and towers, that as the voices go through here, that they ultimately end up in these places. So maybe we just try it out. Just someone close by, Siri, can you?
Hey Siri.
That's great.
Whatever I can do to help.
To Google.
Hey Siri.
Hey Google.
Very funny. I mean, not
Alexa?
funny, haha, but funny.
Alexa.
Hey Siri.
I'm flattered, but that's not me. I'm your Google Assistant. What can I do for you?
Alexa?
Hey Siri.
Alexa?
Hey Siri.
Siri.
Okay, Google.
Siri.
Alexa?
Hey Siri.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Alexa?
Siri.
Google. Alexa?
Hey Google.
Okay, Google.
Sorry about that.
Siri.
Please try again and
Sorry,
tell me what were
I'm
you
not
looking
sure.
for.
It's
Alexa.
okay.
What do you mean, Siri?
Okay,
Alexa.
Google.
Alexa.
Okay, Google.
Hey Siri.
Google.
Siri.
Alexa. Okay, Google.
Hey Siri.
Google. Did you answer?
That's not a name I can respond to.
Alexa.
Are you
Hey,
Siri?
Siri.
Are you Siri?
Sorry, I'm not sure.
Google. Okay, Google.
Doesn't
sit
Siri.
Sorry,
off
I can't
Google.
search the
fire
web here.
alarms?
Are you Siri?
Okay, Google.
Siri.
Alexa?
Hey
Siri.
Siri.
My apologies. I don't understand.
I don't understand.
Okay, Google.
Sorry about
Sorry.
that. Please try again and tell me what were you looking for.
Sorry, Siri.
That's so nice.
Siri, sorry.
Just ask me what you'd like me to do, and I'll try my best to help.
Apologize.
Okay, Google.
Sorry,
Okay,
Siri.
Google.
Alexa.
Alexa.
Siri.
Alexa, why are you
Siri?
so loud?
Hey Siri.
What?
That's not a name
Hey,
I can
Siri.
respond to.
Hey Siri.
Siri.
What's your name?
Can
I
you
guess my
respond?
Siri impression is working, even when I'm not trying. I
Alexa.
do an impression of a person.
Alexa.
Are you
Siri.
trying?
Alexa. Alexa.
Alexa.
Siri.
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 Okay, Google.
Okay, Siri. Hey, Siri.
Siri.
I guess my Siri impression is
Siri,
working,
Google.
even when I'm not trying.
Are you
Hey,
I
trying,
can also
Siri?
do an impression of a toaster.
Siri. Are you a toaster? Siri.
Toaster?
Siri.
Alexa, Siri.
Hey Siri.
Okay, Google. Toaster?
Toast.
Very funny. I
Sorry,
mean, not funny,
I'm not sure
haha,
about that.
but funny.
Siri.
Hey Siri. Siri.
Are you still there?
Alexa.
Hey Siri.
Alexa.
I'm here.
Okay, Google.
Wake up, Siri.
We're here.
Hey Siri.
You are 2.18 miles, 3.51 kilometers, north of the center of Melbourne.
Alexa.
No. I have far too much to do.
Sure, when or...
Alexa?
Siri.
Hey Siri.
Sorry, what time was that? I didn't catch that.
20 past
Okay,
4.
I'm still not getting
Really?
the time. Just say, for instance,
Alexa.
6:30 p.m. or noon.
Alexa.
You can
Alexa.
also say never mind.
Alexa.
6:30 p.m. noon.
Alexa.
Siri.
Dude?
Hey
Alexa.
Google, can I call you
I'm
Siri?
still
Alexa.
having trouble understanding.
Hey Siri.
There might be
Alexa.
some noise in the
Alexa.
background.
Alexa.
Siri.
Alexa.
Siri, can you Google Alexa? Hey Siri. Can you Google Alexa?
That's not a name I can respond to.
Sorry, I can't search the web here.
Hey Siri. Are you connected to the web?
Looks like we're online.
Alexa?
What does it look like?
Alexa.
Hey Siri.
Siri. Siri.
Google.
What does the web look like?
Okay, Google.
Hey
Okay,
Siri.
Google.
Google.
Currently, in Northcote, it's 54 degrees Fahrenheit with cloudy skies.
Where's
Tonight,
Northcote?
you can expect just a few clouds in the sky with a low of 41 degrees.
Can you convert that to centigrade,
Sorry,
please?
I can't search the web here.
Alexa.
Okay, Google.
Okay, Google, can you give us that in centigrade?
Hey Siri.
It's 4:24 p.m.
Before I can help Alexa, you'll need to enable personal requests. Open the Home app on
Alexa.
iPhone and go to Home Settings.
Google.
Then tap your name and turn on
Alexa.
personal requests.
Okay,
My
Google.
name, series.
Alexa. Okay, Google.
Hey Siri.
That's not a name I can respond to.
Hey Siri.
Siri,
Alexa.
have you died?
Okay, Google.
Sorry, I don't know that.
Google.
Are you alive?
Okay, Google.
Where were you born?
Hey Siri.
Why are you quiet?
Alexa.
Okay,
Siri,
Google.
why are you quiet?
Alexa.
Siri,
Here I am, talking to you.
Alexa. Alexa? Alexa.
Siri,
Hey Google, do you feel neglected?
That's not a name I can respond to.
I wasn't talking to Alexa.
They both have their pluses. Then again, they both have their minuses. This is a big decision. I have to do more research.
Okay, Google, what are you referring to?
Hey Siri.
Let's start over. How can I help?
Alexa?
Siri,
Alexa.
That's so creepy. Hey Siri. Hey Google.
Alexa. Google Siri.
Okay Google.
Sorry, I don't know that.
Hey Siri.
Alexa. Alexa.
Hey Siri.
Okay, Google.
Not bad.